All righty, everybody, welcome to another ASEA Global Expansion Team Zoom. Tonight, we're going to talk about ethos, principles, and culture in ASEA. So we've got the amazing Dick and Nancy Walker from Washington State, and we've got Bo Buck joining me here from Colorado. And we're going to just have a little discussion about why ASEA puts so much emphasis on creating an ethos and a culture based on principles so consciously. They put a lot of effort and a lot of, a lot of energy towards really proactively creating this culture. So Dick and Nancy, why do you think this culture that they're working on is so important?
Well, I think it's one of the things that separates us from a lot of other companies, quite frankly. I don't, I'm not a corporate guy, but I have a hard time thinking that most corporations spend the kind of effort and really place so much emphasis on ethos. And I think it's a good idea because we're a people-to-people company. We deal with people all the time, and it certainly has to do with how we look at others and how we treat others. And so I think for a network marketing company, for what we do, I think having the right ethos and having that extend both outward from the company and inward from each of us, I think it's really important to being successful. So
I think it goes a little further than that, because and I'm sure you've heard that network marketing kind of mimics real life. So it's the perfect place to promote something like the type of culture that we have. And if you look at what is culture, it is a way of life that is passed down generation to generation. And it's about setting an example for the next generation, but it's also about, if you want to be happy, not just successful. I mean, if you're happy, you're successful. I mean, people measure success in different ways. But if you want to be successful at this business financially and successful at your life, you have to look at culture. And that just means, how do you treat people? And I just happened to find a direct quote from Tyler Norton, is that he was talking about the book, The Power of Kindness. It's one of my favorite books too. And he said, human relations are cooling. You could call it the ice age of the heart. As you know, there's been a lot of rifts, shall we say, caused by politics and all kinds of other things. And so he was talking about the power of kindness in changing your life, our lives, and the world as a whole. So I think that he knows this culture in ASEA will go much further than just in the company. So he says, we don't have to be in agreement to be kind to one another. And what happens when he says the greatest act of kindness is introducing someone to ASEA. And that is for many reasons, not just someone's health, but it's for all these reasons. So as you know, I mean, I don't want to, be pontificating, but I love this stuff. And so if you're kind, being kind and compassionate, which you have to be in our business, correct? You don't really last in our business if you're not kind and compassionate. So being kind leads to it changes the electrical field of our hearts. And perhaps you've heard of heart math. Okay, so when you're kind and you're compassionate, it changes the magnetic and electrical fields of our hearts. And that electrical field is 60 times stronger than the electrical and magnetic field of your brain. So it's about feeling. And feeling compassionate, you have to be loving and compassionate to stay in this business. Most of the people that get attracted into ASEA are that way. And not only that, you have to have patience. We're dealing with people. You have to have a lot of patience. So patience, kindness, compassion, those things will change the electrical field around you, which in turn changes your health, and it changes the world.
So let's just talk about, for people that aren't familiar with the ethos that is deliberately being created at ASEA, one of the concepts is this P over E and constantly driving up our C. And what that means, it's not a biochemistry equation, but P stands for principles and people. So the idea of keeping your principles of honesty, integrity, of empathy, compassion, those principles above your need to fill your ego, make yourself look good, or your economic drive to, make money because you did a certain thing. So it's okay to make money, and it's okay to try to put your best foot forward, but not at the expense of lowering your principles in order to do so. So, the example is that if somebody were to, tell a little fib just to make some money in ASEA, that's against the ethos that ASEA is creating. So the P over E is something that we're encouraged to consider with every decision that we're making. And the C is our capacity to deliver in the marketplace. So constantly working on that becoming piece, becoming a person who is able to deliver that message in a way that is attractive and that serves the person that's in front of us. So that's one of the principles. Anatomy of Peace is another book that we've studied under Tyler's guidance. And that's about, there it is. It's about treating people as people instead of like objects. And I'm actually listening to this book on tape right now. And it's a good to refresh every once in a while, because we realize that every day in our daily life, we can slip into a situation where somebody that's in front of us we're treating them like an object. We're forgetting that they're a human being with conditions and situations and feelings and things just like we are. And so we might behave in a way just to, move them out of the way or get them to do a certain thing, as opposed to really treating them as a human being. So it's something that we're constantly striving at. So that's another one. Gratitude is another ethos that is strongly encouraged, to be really grateful for all that you have and all you're surrounded by. The 3 questions is another one, where you're asking, okay, so, what is the most important time? Who is the most important person? And what is the most important thing that you do? And the answer to those questions is the most important time is now. The most important person is the person standing in front of you. And the most important thing to do is something that serves that person that's standing by your side. So it's that concept, that philosophy. And there's another principle called Ubuntu, and that's I am because we are. And the example is that there's an African child who gives a whole basket of apples, and he can just run and grab this basket of apples, but he doesn't. He grabs the hands of his friends, and together they go and grab the apples because he doesn't feel like he's anything without his friends. So it's that concept of we as opposed to I. And I remember the late Rob Ward used to say, if we can just change 2 letters from illness to wellness, if we change I to we can even change the word illness to wellness. And so it's that concept of working together with the people around you instead of against the people around you. And there's other, believe, belong, become is another principle and philosophy that's in this business, that you have to believe that we're all doing something very special together, that we belong to this movement of really being a force for good in the world, and that we are becoming more and more evolved as a humanitarian people as we work together and practice some of these principles that we're encouraged to practice. And I'm sure that there's some other principles that I'm forgetting, but those are some that have really been reinforced and are really about the fabric that the people of, ASEA are creating. If you look around, you just think, man, we are surrounded by some pretty fabulous people. Bo, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think, being able to hear Tyler's yearly message is one of the most important reasons to go to convention. I know it's a high spot of the convention for me because he's presented all of these principles in the form of a story and an allegory. And, it always hits home for me and always teaches me a lesson. Some of them that I practice and some of them that I forgot to practice. And, it's just a way of helping us to live a better life, not just to be a better ASEA associate, although it certainly helps in that direction. And it doesn't just apply to the people that we're prospecting. It applies very strongly to your team and how you treat your team and how you see your team and where you place them in the whole hierarchy of who are you here for and what are you, who are you doing, who are the most important people to do good for. Certainly that one, it's the person that you're with, but it's your whole team and it's everybody that we're reaching out to try to help. And once we realize that, then our definition of success becomes much broader than just what's your right leg volume and what's your left leg volume. It's really is about who can we help both with their health and with their finances and lifestyle. And so I don't know how you could have a successful company like this if there wasn't a fair amount of attention, and not just attention, but activity and effort put towards teaching and making sure that the people understand that that's really the foundational culture of the company.
Yeah, I remember working with a property manager. She worked very hard. She was very conscientious about being at her job on time and doing a really good job and being, reliable and, dependable and a true professional in her line of work. And the one thing she craved over anything else, she got paid very well and she got referrals and all that kind of stuff, but she didn't feel appreciated. She worked and worked and worked and worked, but she didn't feel appreciated. And a thank you, a simple thank you, or an acknowledgement of, wow, I could never do that. You're so talented. That edification of catching somebody do something right and then verbalizing it and looking for what people are doing right as opposed to what people are doing wrong, and verbalizing that instead of just noticing it and appreciating it and having gratitude towards that, but actually putting it into words. And if you put it into words, even in front of other people, that is a great thing. It's priceless. It pays priceless dividends, and it's not a manipulative concept or trait. It has to come from your heart. It has to be true. But I'll tell you what, there is such a lack of that kind of thing in the world, and people are just craving to be acknowledged in so many ways other than just by a paycheck.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if people haven't been around to see it for a while, I think, and we're guilty of not probably paying as much attention or using it as much with our teams or prospects is to introduce people to the Ethos Academy and Tyler's lessons. They're all recorded. Just before we got on, Nancy and I were searching around for some good tools that people could go to. And, on YouTube, there's one, it's only 5 minutes long. And I think it's hashtag ASEA, hashtag Ethos flow with Tyler Norton. And it's like a little over 5 minutes. And he touches on a bunch of these, just the high points. But then there's all kinds of other, videos there. And, he's given, 7 or 8 little talks at convention, all with a different lesson, and you elegantly talked about some of those. And they're all really important, and they're all really insightful, and for me, they really hit home. And that's why I find them so impactful at convention. If there's one part of convention I will not miss, it's Tyler's yearly Ethos presentation. You don't want to miss it, but they're all recorded, so you can all go on YouTube, find them, and listen to them. In fact, if you're feeling down or your business is in a slump, that's a good place to go get a pick me up and to really understand what it is we're here doing. Yes, it's a business, and yes, your business isn't going to be successful if you don't treat it like a business, but understanding that this is an important and integral part of this kind of business. Probably have every kind of business at some level. Certainly if you employ people for anything, these are great lessons for how to teach the people that you work with how to behave and how to look at the world and how to look at each other. And certainly when you're working with prospects, if you don't put if you're sitting down with somebody that you would like to enroll as a customer or as an associate, if your number one goal isn't to help them and to satisfy their needs, then you're just not going to be as successful as you can be. If you're thinking about, gee, I need this much volume on my lesser leg. If this person doesn't make that commitment, I'm in trouble this week. Well, if that's what you're thinking, you probably are in trouble this week. But if you're thinking, how can I serve this person, and what's the best enrollment pack for them to give them the best results, then you're more likely, I think, to have that success.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a story that somebody had demonstrated teaching or treating somebody like an object as opposed to treating them like a human being. And the example was being in the grocery store and, asking somebody that was stocking the grocery store, can you show me where the ketchup is or something? And the person just, didn't acknowledge them. And they were very upset that this person wouldn't acknowledge them and show them where the ketchup was. And so they, went and got a manager or whatever it had, or asked somebody else to show them where the ketchup was. But what had happened with this store clerk is something had happened to this person's mother, and she was in a real slump. And if the person had treated this other person as a person and not just an object to show them where the ketchup was, they might have understood, oh my gosh, I had no idea that your mother was in trouble. Don't worry, the ketchup's not that important. I'll find it. Is there anything I can do for you? It's just that kind of, you forget that there's things going on behind the scenes that we know nothing about, and we can be quick to judge about why somebody is behaving a certain way, instead of looking at our behavior and asking ourselves, why are we behaving the way we're behaving? And in this Anatomy of Peace, they talk about how we get in these habits of, either following an agenda or, having something, premeditated and just trying to get through our day. And if somebody's slowing us down from getting through our day, they become an object. I mean, I remember Tyler tells the story about a woman that's traveling with several children and all the equipment that comes along with children when you're trying to get it onto an airplane. And so he caught himself. He said, well, and he's trying to get on the airplane like everybody else. And he could just roll his eyes and think, oh my gosh, this lady, I'm not going to get in this line because look at all the stuff she's got to check through the security. But instead, he saw her as a person and said, hey, is there any way I can help you with the stuff? I know you probably don't want me dealing with your children, but maybe you can deal with your children and I'll help you check some of this stuff through security. And all of a sudden, that person became a human as opposed to an object that was just in the way of him, getting through the security line. So it can be simple. We can treat somebody like a person 1 second and treat somebody like an object the next second. So it's a very slippery kind of behavioral practice that we can all slip in and slip out of. But it's the more conscious we are of how we're being, and that's what the becoming part of believe, belong, become is all about. The more successful as a human being we're going to be, and the happier we'll be, because I'm sure we've all been a jerk, and we know what being a jerk feels like. And then we've all been a nice person and we know what being a nice person feels like. And you ask yourself how would you rather feel, like a jerk or like a nice person,
Cindy, one thing I'd add into this, and I'd encourage people to go into their back office in the library to read this, because I'm sure a lot of people haven't been able to check it out with the time limitations. But in the back office, under resources in the library, is a document there, and it's called ASEA Mission, Vision, and Values Statement. And I think it's well exemplified here as to how, they're putting it in writing about their culture, about how they feel about this business that we're in. And I'm just going to read it word for word here on our mission and our vision, because I've got it up. But our mission is to better people's lives and to be a force for good in the world. And I'd say that you were just talking about that when it comes to the anatomy of peace. And our vision, and this is about the culture and ethos in the company, become the recognized global leader in cellular health and redox-based technologies, and achieve worldwide distribution of ASEA's life-changing products and their financial opportunity and culture. All right, and culture. And one of the best personifications of this, well, first I'll hit the values really quick. The values that they want us to consider and concentrate on, and they have a little blurb after each one that you can look at, but humanity, authenticity, sustainability, performance, growth, resolve, and collaboration. Collaboration requires us to work with each other, right? And to accept certain things. But one of the best personifications that this company has of how we work towards our ethos is the Advancing Life Foundation. And we've had some great experiences in Ecuador, where we went into the rural mountains of Ecuador and built a school, the first vocational school in rural Ecuador. And ASEA bought the land, financed the project. In many instances, a lot of ASEA associates, Cindy and I went as well. Dick and Nancy, I'm not sure if you went.
Yep, they went.
Yeah, we were there.
That's right, sorry. And helped in that project, and that just felt so good. Also Cambodia, in terms of helping with clean, fresh water that families had never had in their entire lives. And then of course the all-important Operation Underground Railroad to stop sex trafficking in the world. And I think it's just, these are, if you go and look this up, it might be something that you can really use when you're sharing your feelings about this company as to what makes us different. And I think it's really important to internalize those things, because it's different than other companies. And I assume, I assume that that's part of the reason why you're here. Okay, so I think that that's really important, and it's exciting that this company's all about it. And Cindy mentioned believe, belong, become. It's all about us believing in what we're doing, believing in ourselves, believing in network marketing, believing in the amazing technology that we have at our hands, and what a gift to humanity it is. Belonging. If you don't belong, Nancy touched on this before, if you don't belong, it's probably because you don't resonate with what this is all about. And the people that are just here for the money usually exit themselves out of the program, really. And then becoming is all about really being part of this and growing into sharing the technology with people, sharing grace, vision, and just humanity with people. And I think that it's something very unique with companies around the world, and we've got a kind of a stronghold on it. And it's awesome that Tyler does the Ethos, and I, like Dick, really enjoy listening to that. But they put it down in writing, and it's right there for us to look at and to be able to internalize and share. And I think that's something that would be advantageous for us all to try and do. So it's just there in the back office under resources in your library. And it's one of the first documents on that document in the upper left-hand part of the page.
Yes, I remember when we were first introduced to ASEA, we were put on a phone call with Alan Noble, and I asked him, Alan, why ASEA? And his answer was because it's a P over E company with very high C. That was his answer of why ASEA. And that's what differentiated ASEA from the other companies that, Bo and I were evaluating. And it just threw us for a curveball. That's not what we thought. That's not what we expected to come out of his mouth. And then, of course, we had him explain that. I don't know what that means. Please explain that. And we thought, wow, that's an amazing concept. And, it was explained to us that the most dangerous people, the most dangerous companies are those people, those companies that will lower their principles in order to serve their ego and economics. And you can think about, and the scary thing about these people and these companies is they're very, very good at delivering in the marketplace. But it's a very, very different kind of company than ASEA is. And so if you think about how ASEA got started, ASEA was a business play, right? And then they bought the science, they improved the science, and they gave it to the 40 people. And that in 2 months, they had 135 people in 20 countries asking for more. And then the pharmaceutical company flew in, looked over all the information, and offered them a big check. And if ASEA wasn't a P over E company, it would have taken the check and we wouldn't have ASEA today. But because ASEA is a P over E company, the principle of humanity and doing the right thing, not the easy thing, it would have been a lot easier to take that check, but they would have had to take the technology away from the people who needed it. And those people that needed it, there were 8 people, but they had names, they had faces, they had lives, and they had relationship with these guys, and they put that relationship above the money. So anyway, that's the way this company got started, and I'm losing my voice, so you guys better take it from here.
I just want to add one thing to what Cindy said, and also Bo made a comment. So these are principles to live by. If you want to be happy, these are principles to live by. Now we go to YouTube, we go to the back office library and listen to what Tyler is saying, because that opens our eyes and our minds to the way we should be living, to create happiness within ourselves and radiating out from us. But what you said, Cindy, you go in and out of it, that's the way it will always be. It's nothing that we really need to learn. You need to learn to be eloquent about how to speak about it. And that's what Bo said. You can go in there and learn how to explain this to other people. But as far as learning how to be loving, compassionate, kind, that is our essence already. So don't be hard on yourself when you fall out of that. And you will go in and out and in and out. But it's a matter of having it in the forefront of your mind so that when you treat someone as an object and not a person, you recognize it right away. And as soon as you recognize it, you can correct it. But I'm telling you, it's really simple. Even making eye contact and being present for someone, that is the beginning of a relationship. When you make that eye contact, you're saying to them, like the woman, like the person in the store, I care about you. I'm going to be still for a minute and notice you and acknowledge you. And that is the beginning of a relationship. And it will change people. Gazing at them for a few seconds, it's amazing. And so when you think about what we do in our business, and you actually have to find out about people, that will make this world a better place. And you already know how to do that. You just have to remind yourself that, because all kinds of other things, well, we're human, we have an ego, and there's all kinds of things that get in, that distract us. But the good news is, you already have what it takes to create a beautiful life in a world that you can make a difference and create a great ASEA business.
Absolutely. And one of the things that is so encouraged to be practiced in the anatomy of peace is, asking questions and genuinely listening. Because most people ask questions, but then they just are holding onto their mouth until they can say the next thing they want to say, as opposed to really absorbing what the other person is sharing. And so when people ask for scripts in this business, it's, I don't know, a little bit unsettling for me, because if they just had enough confidence in themselves, slow down and really just listen to what the person is saying, what they will say next will be organic. It'll be natural, because they've genuinely listened to what the person said. So they'll, you'll know the natural response. So when you're treating people like people and not like objects, the words will come to you, because your objective is to, there's not agenda. It's not like what Dick said. I mean, I'm trying to reach Director 300 this week. You're really, the only way that you're going to use ASEA with this person is to figure out how ASEA is going to serve them. If you figure how ASEA is going to serve them, then you can present it in a way where, it'll be attractive to them, not for your reasons, but for their reasons. And that's, what we're constantly practicing. So anyway, I think the ethos of ASEA is really strong. I think it's a really incredible thing that is taught by the very top. And I think that, it's a wonderful thing to work on. It'll spill over not only into our business, but also into our personal relationships with each other and with our children and grandchildren and friends and neighbors and all that kind of stuff. So any final thoughts, Nancy, before we wrap it up tonight?
Well, just that I it's my favorite part of network marketing. It is the people, and it's the most difficult part. And I think just to reiterate, you can't be too hard on yourself. It's a journey, and it's a path that we're on. And sometimes we will do good and sometimes not so good, but to recognize it and then to be better, to be more aware, to be more present. And like you say, then the answers come, and they come from, I don't know, they're probably not even our answers, because if you're really present, they will come. Who knows where they come from?
Right.
But
Bo, any final thoughts?
Geez, I had some, but I just lost them. They went out the window. But I just think that when Cindy, you and I when we flew in to learn about ASEA, this is one of the big reasons we joined ASEA. We were talking to Vertus, we were talking to Tyler, and they were resonating this ethos. And we actually heard at that particular time about principles, purpose, and people before ego and economics. And we were like, yeah, that kind of jazzed us up. And that's kind of what, tipped the scales for us. So I just think that it's a beautiful part of this company, and that we need to definitely become familiar and aware with it as much as possible. But also, if we're able to resonate that ethos, we will draw more people into our lives, and we will become far quicker as well.
That's for sure. I just know that when you're in the presence of Vertus Norton, he makes you feel so special. You really feel like somebody in his presence. And I think people crave feeling like somebody, crave feeling that they matter. So anyway, let's go out there and practice being our best selves and continue being a force for good in the world. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Good night, everybody.
Excellent. Thanks, Cindy and Bo.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.